The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live. The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party, featuring weekly discussions on political news and current affairs. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party.
There we go.
Good.
Little Marvin Gaye. Get it started.
Get it started.
Can't go wrong with Marvin Gaye. That's
Absolutely
the rule.
not.
You can't.
You can go wrong with Justin Bieber. That's a rule, guys. That's a hard
That's another world.
Welcome to Black Tea Party, everybody. I'm Michael Timon. Joining us shortly will be Don. Today we have Shirley.
Woo!
You know,
Hey,
Shirley,
guys.
we've had a report on Urban Game Changers.
Awesome. Yes, Urban Game
Doing
Changers.
good?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And also joining us today is C.R. See, I told you I'd screw it up. Cochran
That's okay.
McClurkin.
That's okay.
Sorry, and she's an executive member of the Reseda Board.
The neighborhood board.
So we have an actual person who's in city government. The place I actually think any government gets done. So what do you do for the board?
Wow. Well, we do quite a bit. We have a number of different committees, and for example, if a company wants to move into the San Fernando Valley, because that's what the area that we cover, we're in Reseda, they have to come to our planning committee and they have to submit a proposal.
Okay.
So, for example, we recently approved a proposal for a McDonald's over in Reseda, and so they have to tell us the dimensions, they have to tell us what their plans are, who they plan to hire, who the developers are, and then we have to look at square footage, we have to look at the height. So a lot of the planning and things like that, you know, they come through us first. We also have a number of businesses like senior citizen homes that want to move into residential areas, and so we have to talk a little bit about zoning and things like that.
Excellent.
Sweet. So your job is you sit on the board that approves those actual businesses?
We absolutely do.
Awesome. And what do you find the biggest, I don't want to say roadblock, what's the biggest thing that you guys are looking for a business coming into your community?
Something that will benefit the city, will benefit the area, will benefit the community, and a lot of the businesses we want to work within the communities. We want them to be kind of doable. A lot of times our neighbors come out and they do protest if this is something they don't want. They don't want excessive parking issues. They don't want anything that's kind of unsavory within the boundaries of schools and things like that.
Of course.
So it has to be something that works with the community, you know, and so that's really what we look for. Restaurants, any type of business that is beneficial.
Well, thank you, CR, for joining us on today's show. Hopefully we
welcome.
get some small government perspective here. So
You will. You will.
We're going to start with our first story. We kind of touched on it last week, but we didn't get into it. We decided it was important enough. We need to delve into this.
Okay.
Basically, raw story. They've dug up some numbers on cop deaths.
Yes. Yes.
It's not good.
It's not good at all. It's comparison to 9/11.
And right now what we're finding, if you guys remember from last week, is that the deaths that from just 2014
Right.
of African Americans in the community from cops exceeds 9/11. People who died in the Twin Towers. And so my question is, why aren't more people upset about this? Like, that seems like a big, and that's on conservative estimates.
Right,
We
it
still
is.
don't have Chicago.
Right.
We don't have Atlanta. If I remember the article correctly, we don't have New Orleans.
Right.
Right.
But I think you have to keep in mind that knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And so the more that we see that technology grows in this country, as individuals are more conscious and aware of what is happening, then they're more astute to say, oh, I never thought about it like that. I mean, shows like these are brilliant because what we do is we bring awareness to the fact of 9/11 compared to where we are now and how we're not progressing as a country. We're almost eating our own with what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and the areas I'm naming, by the way, are some of the worst areas when it comes to black-on-black crime and stuff.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And so what we're seeing now is, like, I don't know, where do we start? Like, now we're just starting, how do we hold the police accountable in these cities so that we can actually get the stats? Because the biggest problem with this whole thing is this is the lowest number they could come up with.
Oh, wow.
Because they didn't
It's
want to
very
count.
sad.
Yeah, they
It's
didn't
very
count where the police
Chicago,
shot back,
certain
Right.
they didn't count
Right.
other cities. They didn't count certain stats.
That's
So if you
correct.
put in some of those stats, that could be looked at as more police
Right.
brutality.
Or stats.
It's
they
even
want-
higher.
Or stats that they really want to release and let us know. There might be even the greater stats. We're just working with what we have access to. You're a
Right.
city county official. How do you feel about that?
I'm very, very concerned about it. What we've recently done, we have encouraged the city. We have a new program where, now this is for first offenders, but sometimes it applies. We have a program where the community can make the call, can make the judgment call, rather than to send people to the court system and tie everyone up. We have a program where the city sits on the board, city members, community members sit on the board, and they determine the fate legally of someone.
Wow.
So oftentimes it doesn't apply to many people, but if you're a first-time offender in a small crime,
Yes.
you can actually go before
What is
this
considered a
board.
small crime?
Petty theft, if you're in the store and you take something
Okay.
under, I think, about $500. Petty theft, vandalism.
What about marijuana?
That's included in it too.
Okay.
Because if there's a small amount, then it's just a misdemeanor.
Okay. Yeah.
So if something like that occurs, normally you go through the court system, you're in the system, you're documented, and you have to sort of fight your way out. This way, if you agree to this program, then you just do some form of community service, and it is not on your record, which is essential. And so for many people, that's
But
a good way.
as we talk about police brutality, you're talking about accountability for one's action.
Right.
What about the action of the police officer? What is the city council doing to protect the constituent?
What we do is we look at the prior record. We work in conjunction with the police because, as everyone says, there's good policemen and bad policemen. So we work with them. There used to be in Los Angeles, it was called the Commission.
Okay.
It's no longer called the Commission, but we still have watchdog associations and things like that. What really appeals to me, even though we're very concerned with it, is that it's the depiction that the media gives. That's why we don't have a lot of stats. So what I'm hearing you say is there's no law in place for the constituent to hold the cops accountable, and you guys don't have anything in place regarding the police officers' accountability. I know that you're telling me about programs and things allocated for your repercussion of your actions and for the protection of the constituent, but I'm talking about the protection of what is they doing to stop the cops from taking my people out. Well, what we've done, we've worked in conjunction with the local NAACP because we had an incident maybe 2 or 3 years ago where someone was shot in their home, in their driveway, by the police. When we investigated it later, this was a definite mental case, and so when it's a mental case, they should not be coming guns blazing.
Yeah.
Right,
It's an entirely different situation. It's called the 50-51. So there's certain things that are in place. Another program is called the SMART program, and it's with LAPD. It's a pilot program here in Los Angeles, where social workers work in conjunction with policemen and go out on the call, and then they determine if it's a serious issue, if it requires guns, or if it just requires a conversation and maybe mental health, security or something like that. And then the other thing that really appeals to me, years and years ago, the policemen used to be called constables, and policemen were actually social workers. They did not carry guns.
They were.
Right.
People forget that. People forget it's become this more military job. It used to be, like we talked about a few weeks ago, people you had to live in that neighborhood.
Absolutely.
It used to be
Absolutely.
you had to.
Yeah.
It wasn't even...
That doesn't apply anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we should go back to that.
Absolutely.
Many of our policemen in Los Angeles live in Simi Valley.
Yes.
They live in Thousand Oaks. Some of them that work
But
in
they're
Los
not
Angeles.
aware of the culture of the community. And
they're not in touch with it. They
no,
may
of
have
course not.
statistics.
You don't live there, so then
Right.
there's this threat of at least I don't have to live down there.
Right.
And that's the
Right.
discrimination. I'm going to go back to my question. I seem
Okay.
to feel that you're avoiding it, and that question is again. You continue to tell me all these wonderful programs that are still in the state or within your district or your city. I want to go back to what are the police, what are you doing to hold them accountable? You mentioned the NAACP, but there are also some brown people, some Latinos, some Asians, some Armenians.
Absolutely.
These people are assumed to be in areas if they're bad, and they do get acted on as well. What are you doing, or your group or city council members are doing to recommend the police, to get on the police and say, you're wrong, you're going to be held accountable. You could be prosecuted.
Like, are body cameras or anything being looked at even as a possibility?
They are, and they're actually in place. You know, I think the most recent incident in Missouri, they brought those cameras in. Now in Los Angeles, we have body cameras here already with the LAPD. We also have cameras on the cars. And so those are audited because a lot of times, unless something occurs like death, the cameras are never reviewed.
Right.
So now they want them to be audited just on GP.
So is this what the city council members are doing? They're proposing a bill for cameras?
They already
to have more cameras in place?
They have cameras in place. What we'd like to see is just review of the cameras.
Okay.
You know, it's like anything.
Who will be reviewing those cameras? Is there a media program? Is there some other outside entity that will be the mediator for that?
There is. What used to be the commission is no longer called, quote, the commission, but they still have a party that oversees the Los Angeles Police Department and the Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
So it's not just them policing themselves because that was the problem.
I think the problem within most of these cities, we have too many programs. And I respect the fact that programs are in place to help and protect the people, but they have weakened the people because the people should feel empowered that the protection should be in place through the tax dollars and everything else that they continue to pay for. City council members want to put programs, but yet we know that these police are wrong. We know that these police need to be prosecuted and should be going after the pension because even if they are prosecuted, the money comes back from the people.
Right.
Because if they are indicted, that comes out of the constituents' pocket, and that is painful. So even if they're pensioned, these people have 2 and 3 pensions.
Well, even outside of the money, the biggest problem I have is there's no transparency. Like my biggest problem with this story in the first place, and the way they're getting away with this is police departments are writing their own forms so they can leave things out. So then years go by, they can just claim, oh, I don't know, we don't have the information.
Look at the situation with the man with the horse in San Bernardino. I mean, they said they went to the hospital and that the horse was kicking them and they were unaware that NBC News had a camera on them and then they had to take back their story. So, you know, they have a history of lying, they have a history of brotherhood, and because of new technology devices that are coming in place, they're being held accountable.
Which is phenomenal. I think we really need to look at that. I mean, what we're looking at now is a media revolution. We didn't have that before.
That is so true.
Exactly.
You know, and so anyone with a cell phone, and that's happening, they can depict history.
Yes,
you
they
know?
can.
One of the things that we're looking at as well, the gentleman in New York that filmed Mr. Garner, who was murdered, or who was killed, we'll say, allegedly murdered.
That was a murder. I'll say it.
Murder, I'll say it with you.
The gentleman that filmed it was incarcerated. You know, some charges. You know, they brought up charges. They did a fundraiser to get him bailed out. He is now out. But those are the types of things that we want to look into. Why was he picked up? Why was he incarcerated? Why was he charged with something?
Right.
You know, because he turned in his phone and said, I want to report this. So we also want to protect the people that film it. You know, we want to make sure they're protected, that they're not intimidated or anything like that. So we're kind of looking into that too. And laws have to be created as we progress.
Absolutely. You're right on that.
Real quick before we move on.
Okay.
We have a little thing right here. If you're a small business owner, you're going to want to listen up. Are you hiring but not sure who the best candidates are? That's, I'm pretty sure, every business person's problem. Is I want the best person. But we have ZipRecruiter.com.
Oh, okay.
So ZipRecruiter, they will help you find the best hires for your positions. When you're short staffed, there's no time to deal with dozens of different job sites. That's another problem.
That's true.
This is kind of like moving it forward to where a temp agency where, you know, just hire people you need for the day.
Absolutely.
Which I think is where things are kind of going. We'll talk about that later with the minimum wage. Until now, thanks to ZipRecruiter.com, you can post up to 100+ job sites with one single click.
Wow, that's awesome.
That is good.
You have the highest possible chance of finding the perfect candidate. Just post once, and within 24 hours, watch your candidaets roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. I need to find one of these.
Yeah, I love this. You know, free enterprise at its finest.
Makes me want to start a business right now. It's been used by over 300,000 businesses, and you can try it right now for free. Getting the right people for your company is so important. I think we've all had a situation where we've had a crappy employee and make a bad day. And the right people for your company is so important. Try ZipRecruiter.com and get the perfect candidate before they go somewhere else. You don't want to lose those people.
ZipRecruiter, what's it called? ZipRecruiter.com. I think the best thing about this is that we talk about free enterprise. We talk about capitalism growing in our country. It is basically the people taking back government.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Today you can try it for free. All you have to do is go to ZipRecruiter.com/podcast.
I love that.
And that's ZipRecruiter.com/podcast.
That's pretty
And
good.
for the third time, as the rules media goes, ZipRecruiter.com/podcast. So Okay, we're going to move on real quick. We're going to move to a slightly similar story. I mean, it just seems similar story. Every day it seems like there's another shooting going on, right?
Right.
Well, it's come in, Michael Slager, the guy who shot, Holmes Scott. He has a history of tasing black people while he's pretending to be a police officer. And my first question is, after the first incident where he tases someone as a deputy,
that's all I'm saying.
Right.
Why did they let him carry a gun?
Why did they let him continue on? See, this goes back to the accountability of the police.
Right.
And I don't know, as far as city council, even if you converse with other city council people, because it needs to be the same level of government interaction, because these issues are coming into play on a local and state issue. This is crucial. We have these repeat offenders on the police side, as well as illegal immigrants, as well as criminals.
Well, should we have deputies who are untrained on the streets with guns?
Because you wouldn't have an attorney if they're not licensed. If they haven't passed the bar, you wouldn't have a physician if they haven't done their residency.
Absolutely.
So I think that, the sheriffs and the police need to go through the same requirements. And I also think they need to update their training. Maybe every couple of years or maybe once a year, someone needs to stop and look at their record and say, let me see how you've been doing.
Absolutely.
Let me see how many near shootings or whatever's been going on. So it needs to be monitored a little more closely.
I've always said we need more education in the police force.
We
because,
absolutely do.
I mean, I don't want to. There's a lot of police officers who have educations. Most of them are detectives, unfortunately.
Right.
And that's kind of the problem is we're seeing. Like, my mom is a teacher, and every 2 years she has to get more credentials.
That's right.
She has to have a degree, and we're paying, I mean, I hate to bring the money into it, but we're paying them a good salary, a good middle-class salary to do their job. I think asking them to take a class.
Right.
But I think you need to clarify that, because it's easy to say, well, they need to go to school, but what does that really mean?
Well, I mean, you got to set aside a curriculum. Like, my mom can't just take fishing or sailing.
But
she has to take
conjunction
specific
to the police,
classes.
if you had to say, I'm a police officer, I need to go to school, what would you expect them to take? What would you want them to have?
I think they should study diversity. I think they should study the nature.
Sociology.
Maybe, sociology, maybe urban renewal. What's going on in the city?
Absolutely.
If they're policing a certain city, they need to understand that city, even economically. If people are having problems, if robberies are going up, and right now, crime is up in Los Angeles right now.
Yes.
It was in yesterday's paper.
Yep.
Okay, so we want to study, why is crime going up? Is unemployment also going up? They're letting out people, on SB, I think, is it 409? I don't remember the numbers, but they're letting people out of incarceration because they feel that they need to rehabilitate them a little bit better. But are they working closely with them?
Right.
Or are they just letting them out?
Exactly. Are they providing
I agree
services?
with you. I also believe that the police officers should be living in the community.
I
and
agree.
it would be nice that someone proposed a bill on the table in the state of California requiring them to wear cameras at all times.
Right.
Maybe even 5 cameras, one on the front, one on the back side, in the car, on their helmet, on their badge. I mean, really.
No,
GoPros are cheap, guys.
No. I mean, come on. You can wear them on buttons. Another thing I think they should require, again, we keep going back to this, again, I'm going to say it, live, relate, and release into the community. Let them know who they are, even walking the streets. Back in the day, I live in Pasadena, California. And one thing I love about Pasadena is they do have different levels of policing. They do have the people who don't carry any armor, and they walk the community, they're in a yellow shirt, and they're protecting, and there's a sense of presence of them being there. I think that if we think of those urban communities that have a higher crime level, if there was a sense of presence, and that the city would allocate funds towards providing that lower level below LAPD of a sense of presence.
It would help. Well, I mean,
would help.
What you see now and what I've noticed is many, many more policemen on bicycles. Policemen and policewomen on bicycles. And even though that might sound a little unusual,
I think that's good.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect because they're in the neighborhood, they're in the stores, they're getting food just like us. And so kids are seeing them and maybe they're being able to relate to them better. I have seen policemen on horses as well. I don't know how I feel about that, because we're in the city.
Yeah, I think that's like an antiquated thing in a way. Like, it's kind of cool to see because it's like, hey, look, they used to be on horses.
But horse can move between cars pretty fast.
That's true.
I think a bicycle's better, though. A bicycle, you can not only move as
you see them on those new electrical cars with the 2 wheels and
give them some segways.
Yeah, you've seen those? They're really small and long.
I can't take that police officer seriously.
I don't want to get ran over. Well, let me ask you this. What do you feel about them having a town council meeting once a week in the community.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I
mean, there's
you
a
know,
city council meeting that
Right.
you have to be at, and
Right.
they come and they address you. Why isn't there things where the police are there? And the police officer who has been in question on several different accounts, but maybe not prosecuted, that the community can talk to him and say, why and what can we do?
Well, there have been town hall meetings, and policemen are present. They're present at our meetings all the time. So every time we meet, we have them there. They give a report, what's going on in the neighborhood. And so the community is able to speak directly to them. Now, they have an option of coming to the meetings. We always encourage it, and we get good results. But I don't know about other small cities, within LA County. But I think we need to definitely have more town hall meetings, definitely. And then the relationship just needs to be, each station is open door. It's definitely an
Right.
open door policy. But people have to kind of come out. What we're seeing now, in the 60s, people came out of their homes and people complained when
Yes,
it was
they
time to
did.
complain. When your child was not being educated, those parents were down there.
Yeah, but we got
You know?
Twitter now. No, I'm kidding. Totally joking.
So now they communicate through Twitter.
Absolutely.
Cop shooting at me,
but-
LOL. You don't want to see that tweet.
Text them, whatever, however you got to communicate that we don't like what's happening. I think it should happen more. I really do.
How do you feel about, now this has been raised a few times since Ferguson, and one of the biggest problems with Ferguson, especially now we see after the trial where they let him off and it turns out the DA. Now we have a lot of problems
Right.
within the cities
Right.
kind of helping each other out, like he's a DA, he's a cop, so he's going to help him out.
Right,
Should we start
exactly.
taking these things out of those cities and using sister cities to help those cities?
Good question.
Well,
How would you
I think
feel
what
about
you're
that as
asking about is, do we need a change of venue when we have a legal system and
Yes.
and everyone? Okay, I absolutely think so. I don't really understand Ferguson, and I didn't study that closely, but that absolutely should have been a change of venue. That's a legal provision.
Right.
And if everyone is too closely linked, you automatically, whoever your attorney is, ask, can we have a change? Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if it occurred there. In Los Angeles, it should immediately be considered a conflict of interest. If everyone's related and you've got a brother that's a policeman and the
Right.
judge, so I'm not quite sure how they do it out there.
Yeah.
But again, someone has to come forward and say, this is wrong, I want to look at it, I want to review it. And any community member can say, we're taxpayers. We are
Yeah.
taxpayers. So by law, our taxes are paying for the court system.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we just have to speak up and say, I don't like this, I'd like it reviewed, I want to see the transcripts. A lot of this stuff is public knowledge,
Right.
but it just has to be asked
It's
for.
interesting because we look at the backlash on both sides, on African American or men of color, Latino, Asian, Armenian, because I just
Right.
want to make it seem like it's all a black thing, because
Exactly,
it's not.
exactly.
It's a nationwide epidemic that's going on where we are basically destroying and eating our own. And also we do have to look at the fact of accountability on every aspect, on
Right.
their aspect and our aspect. But as the constituent, I have to agree with you. If you're not voting and if there is no bill in law in place, it allows them to do what they do.
Absolutely.
So even though you may
Absolutely.
get mad at the police system, if you're not involved and you're not engaged, you're not going to the city council
Right,
meetings, you're not building a relationship with beautiful people like Camilla, you have failed yourself. And that's
Yeah.
why I started Urban Game Changers, that we hold ourselves and elected officials accountable. So therefore we know the full cards, all the cards are laid on the table, and we
Right.
can address them.
But how do we hold them accountable when the inclusive system? This has always been my thing. Is like story after story, the same problem happens. We don't. How do we get into these departments because
what-
they're closing themselves off
No,
to
I
us to the
understand
point
that.
where we can't get
Well,
it?
I think we have to go back to the Constitution. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect
Yeah.
union, establish justice and domestic tranquility. We have gotten away from the law. And the law talks about domestic tranquility comes first. We are too derailed with other issues, with immigration issues, with financial issues. But we know domestic tranquility, which is the safety and the lines that needs to be in place to help the community. We have to go back and put a bill, a law, in place to address the failures of that flaw.
Well, we also
Yeah.
have to get out of the house.
I agree.
We probably all protested at college, and we were much more politically active. My daughter recently partook in a protest right at the Sherman Oaks Mall, protesting the Ferguson issue, and she was out there with a lot of other students from local colleges and universities. I didn't see a lot of people I'll say
Over
30.
25, right?
Yeah. These were
Yeah.
mostly students. So, we're voting, we're paying taxes, we're participating, we're homeowners. We've got to participate in the system. as well.
Absolutely.
A lot of functions we do, we associate with other councilmen, we hang out with policemen, we have functions all the time. And if people call and say, "What are you guys doing this month?" we'd be more than happy to share it with them. That's when you show up.
Would you be willing to help them write out a bill? Because even though people protest and they go out to events, okay, now let's put a bill on the table. This bill consists of this. We need to do a petition. We need so many signatures to get it on the ballot. We need so many signatures to get it before a committee. Is there a program in place for that?
Teaching people how to write bills?
Yeah,
Is that what you're asking?
right, because I think that would be a confliction of interest if you did that.
That's kind of the problem, is everything's legal.
Right.
Like, the way we write bills seems
so
to be the problem.
Is there something in place for that?
I'm sure there is, because I get approached oftentimes by people who always, there's always these grassroots organizations that want to do things like that. It would require some research. Writing a bill is not impossible, and oftentimes when you go to the councilmen's offices, they actually have books about the U.S. Constitution, how to write a bill, how a bill is passed. So they explain it, and a lot of people, I don't know if they're familiar or aware with it. I'm not sure if they're teaching that in high school government. That's what we should be teaching.
That's true.
How are you a game changer? How does it begin? How does it start?
Yes.
How does the fire start, from a very small flame and actually become a bill?
Absolutely.
So it's certainly possible. That's what our assemblymen spend all this time in Sacramento and all this money. That's what they do. So we've got to go down there.
So you would agree that maybe they should go to the local assemblyman, sit down and talk to his staff and his chief of staff and say, this is an issue, we have a bill. But you would also think that those elected officials would go ahead and start creating somewhat of a bill in place.
And there may be bills in the process. Bills take time. They take quite a bit of time. And so as you talk to assemblymen, you will learn that they've been working on this for a year or two,
That is
and then
true.
it becomes an actual law. So
Excellent.
The best way to do it is to say, let's talk about this, and is someone working on it already? Is there something that I can piggyback on that is already in the creation? Because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to step into an area that is already taking place, and we don't want to mess that up.
Well, sometimes I think we get a little impatient.
Right.
And I was just watching a thing earlier this week, a documentary on the system, and they purposely designed it to be slow as hell. The founding fathers did. They did. They wanted things to take time. They didn't want to see what they saw in England, where people would just make decisions and then. So I mean, that's a conflict I always have. Is like you said, it takes a year because I don't want hasty bills. Like the Patriot Act that happened.
Right.
And
I don't think that we would be as hasty as we were back then. The reason why is because of technology. People are more thorough. They have a chance to read for themselves. We still have a lot of antiquated.
Well, but is that the case with 2,000-page bills that get drawn up in 10 days?
I was going to say that. In most
That's
of those
the other
cases,
side of it, not
most of
the
their
city
staff
side.
members read these bills. The elected officials don't. That's the problem with the feds right now. You get in that position, and they're so old themselves. They're sitting there on depends anyway. The ones that have been in office forever. I have issues with that, and because most of their staff members are reading 2,000 and 3,000 pages of legislation on top of them, the earmarks they like to throw in there.
Well, it's weird to me how I saw this documentary, Bigger, Stronger, Faster. I'll promise I'll bring this back.
That's okay.
And Henry Waxman, who is a congressman, they're talking about what's legal, what's illegal.
Right.
Like kids can't drink, and he goes, yeah, they can't drink till they're 18, right? So if not only is he wrong, he didn't know how old you have to be to drink.
Right.
And this guy's supposed to be talking, and he was in charge of this policy for steroid use. Great documentary, check it out. But he's asking Waxman direct questions, and he's looking to his aide, going, did I answer correctly?
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let me tell you what the problem is.
Yeah.
Whose fault is that? Let's ask whose fault is that?
Well, now he doesn't have a very good reputation because of it.
Whose fault is that, though?
But how are we going to know that?
Let me tell you whose fault that is.
The voters?
Well, I wouldn't say.
Bingo.
Well, but think of how many people we have in Congress like this.
No, but they elect these people.
Shouldn't
and
there
they
be a test?
Well, actually, they know they're old and they know that they're antiquated.
Well, Henry Waxman just retired. So,
He's gone
in defense of Henry, he did just retire. And so
he needed to. He was old and
but
crazy.
There are
he
term
needed
limits.
to go.
There are term limits. And so we have to keep making sure that those term limits, occur. They just established term limits for the supervisors. Prior to, that, there were none.
Yeah, but see, we need term limits on the federal level. We have elected officials who have just been in office a little bit way too long. Barbara Boxer's retired. She should have been gone. You have a lot of people who should just not be there. Feinstein, Boxer,
Boehner, Reed.
Watson. I mean, all these people have been gone. And it gives
Mitch
someone
McConnell.
fresh like you an opportunity. Stop trying to hold that baton forever
But
until they see
how do we
Jesus.
get these term? Okay, so this is another problem.
Exactly.
How do we get the term limits? Because the only people who could vote for these term limits are the people directly affected.
See-
So how do we get this out of?
But there's a limit. Now,
ahead.
before you answer that,
Go
I
ahead.
think there's a red flag to term limits as well, because on the assembly level, sometimes they only have 2 years
Right,
or 4 years,
right.
and it takes them 2 years to get the bill into place. And then by
Right.
the time they get in place, if another elected official comes in, all that work becomes not. And that's
then-
not fair.
And then they take about a year working on their next election. I mean, we've already talked about
Exactly.
Kabila is working on her next election.
Right.
And so you
Yeah.
have to ask yourself, okay, that's fine to work on an election, but are you currently working on with your people as
Right.
well?
Yeah.
And so we don't want term limits that are so short that you don't have time, to fine tune your work.
Right.
The other
Well,
thing
Camilla
is,
has an attitude to me of entitlement. Like, she automatically knows she thinks she's going to get that seat. When you have Jeff Sirheim, who might be a contender
Almost
for that
every
seat. There's a lot of
incumbent
people.
has that
Well,
swag
I
about
think you
them.
have to
in
be-
California, particularly.
You
yes.
have to be
Yeah, yeah.
confident. I think Camilla
I'm saying in the country.
Camilla is confident, and you have to be confident. She's a woman stepping into an arena that's formerly been held by majority men.
Yeah.
And so and she's very young, so she has to have a high level of confidence to fight the good fight. I don't know what will happen at the end of the election, but I think you've got to get in there and you got to be tough and you got to be willing to fight.
I think that's with any candidate runs.
Mm-hmm.
I
Wouldn't
just don't- I
publicly
wouldn't just give
finance
that to her. I
campaigns
would think
get
that would
rid of
be
a
on both
lot of this
sides.
stuff? Wouldn't publicly finance
You know, that
campaigns
is
get
a
rid of
thought.
most of that? Like,
That was
okay,
a thought. It's like,
I have
if I
conservative
give you
friends.
3 coins and I have 3 coins, that's all you
Right.
can spend.
Yeah,
Right.
and people like the primaries. Okay, the primaries, they can raise some money, but you're not going to go $1 billion
Right.
for a primary you might not win.
Right.
But I mean, you're an elected official.
I am.
How do you feel about having publicly financed elections as far as you're concerned?
I think it's okay, only because I know I would not have a lot of money. I know this going into it.
Yeah.
And so I may be at a disadvantage. But I would more so be concerned with, what's my salt? What's my worth? What am I talking about? What's my platform?
Yeah.
So I think that's what people need to see, not these high gloss commercials. Anyone can destroy another person in a commercial. You can.
30 seconds.
Well, there are political action PACs that are in place.
Mm-hmm.
I have a political action PAC, and I think that it's important that we have that access to.
I think we need to get rid of those.
I totally disagree. I think California is not
anything.
balanced.
100%.
California
No
is
offense.
not balanced right now. We have
Mm-hmm.
one side dominating versus the other side. I think the constituents should have a choice. There's
Well,
libertarians
but
and
in
independents
Mississippi,
who
it's
wanna
the
get their voice
exact
out there and
opposite.
need to be
Texas,
heard.
it's the exact opposite with
Yeah, but
liberals
those
and
also,
conservatives.
we're talking about state and local government. They all have different laws that are in place and how those PACs can be utilized.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, but I'm saying you're saying that in California there's a Democrat leaning, and I'm saying in Texas that's the case. Kentucky, Florida, so it goes both ways.
Yeah, but
Let's
in
not pretend it doesn't go both
But
ways.
you have to keep in mind that California in itself is a very strong entity. At one point, we were the 10th largest economy. I mean, 5th largest economy. We're now
Yeah.
like 8th and 10th. So we're continually going down. Our evaluation of our strength as a entity is not good right now. Our state of California.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm saying for publicly financed elections.
Yeah.
Okay, but the
So
PACs,
to
the
bring-
problem with my
and
PACs
the purpose-
is there's no
and why
accountability
do
on
we
a lot
want
of
to-
them.
Well, we want to balance so that the other side has an opportunity to bring its opinions to the table.
Yeah, I'm with that. Like, I think that gets rid of the whole fundraising bullshit. I'm sorry for
okay.
that's just what it is.
He said the word I did.
Yeah, I know, I did. I'll say
One
that
mic,
word.
surely none.
Still no N-words on mic. She's got 3. But you're right, because
Watch the previous shows to get
do
that
you
joke.
want to go to those 10,000? Well, I guess people do kind of want to go to those $10,000 plate dinners, but
Some people do. Some people
Yes,
do.
and you'll
know,
always have those. That's part of the process.
what if we got rid of them?
free enterprise.
Are we going to talk about the?
Yeah, let's talk about. Okay,
job
we got about 10
scenario.
minutes. So right now we have a strike going on in fast food.
Right.
The strikers are actually trying to get their rights and get paid for what they should be paid. A living wage, which $15 an hour still is debatable for a living wage. Not really a living wage here in California for a family,
Right,
but
right.
it's better and in the right direction. Now, we've heard arguments. My argument is this. Like, first of all, I read this thing on Mother Jones, and it was corroborated somewhere else, and I can't remember
explain
who they
who Mother
shared it from.
Jones so that
The
everyone
Mother
knows.
Jones is a online
Right.
journalistic organization, but they looked up, and the wealthiest people on Wall Street, their bonuses on Wall Street equal more than all minimum wage employees combined. Their bonus, that's not their salary.
Yes,
and
yes.
we're talking multi-million. So I think I found the money that they can pay these guys $15 an hour.
Right.
And it's getting hard for me to ever argue against this other than people saying, well, it's the market. Well, the market's not working because we have executives making 400 and more times what their base rate employee is. And we say all they're doing is flipping burgers. But at the end of the day, if a burger's not flipped, does McDonald's make a dime?
So what do you take on that?
I have very particular views on it because I think people that work every day need to be paid well for their work. They're not just flipping burgers. They're supervising people. They're learning. They're on a line, and so they're learning things. And if you think about how much money is generated at McDonald's, in a day, that's a lot of money. And I think it's unfair, but I also, I think what they're doing is they're trying to establish unions, and unions protect the employees. A lot of people don't believe in unions, and we thought unions were sort of dying out.
I didn't until I worked management at UPS. Until I worked management at UPS, and I saw the union step in for these managers that were just not good people trying to fire people. I was like, oh, that's why that's there.
Right, absolutely. I mean, sometimes unions can be a little bit abrasive, but other times they protect the little man.
Can't management be abrasive?
So this is my take on this. When I was younger, I grew up in times where adults didn't work at McDonald's.
That's true.
They were a teenager's job.
True. Right.
Teenagers went ahead and they did the papers.
It's not the case anymore, though.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Teenagers went ahead and they also did the mowing of the lawns. Teenagers did all the jobs to help them progressively move up a ladder.
That's true.
It taught them basic skills. And because those were considered basic skills, they were awarded basic adequate money. Okay? And so now those jobs are not for our teenagers today. We don't have those jobs, and those teenagers aren't able to even get a job of their own. Now we have people who graduated from college and they don't have basic skills because they were encouraged to go to college because the opportunity of basic skills were not in place.
But now you can't even, where are you going to move with basic skills from McDonald's? You're stuck in this position if you don't have an education.
McDonald's started from two men that were brothers.
I know if
you know the story, it's a free enterprise company.
Kind of ripped them off.
You're not letting me finish.
Go.
The bottom line is I think they're wrong, and I think both of you are wrong. I don't believe in expansion of governmental programs. I don't believe in a union. Let me finish. I also think it's very wrong to continue to ask for an increase when you won't increase your education. You want to go after, let me finish. You want corporate America to do it and give their money out,
over on all these points. Let's go one point at a time.
Okay.
Where are they going to get the money for education at $9 an hour? Tell me how you afford college on. I made 15 and I barely got by with loans.
Why are you expecting big corporate America to pay for their college?
The amount of money it would cost them right now. First of all the taxpayers are subsidizing these big corporations. So that's the first thing. The first thing is McDonald's, Walmart, they're all subsidizing by us. So they're making not only billions of dollars, they get billions in subsidies from us, giving it to their workers who can't afford. Like McDonald's, this is how bad it is. McDonald's and Walmart hand them things saying, hey, you're probably not going to make enough money. Go down to welfare.
Do you think that's wrong what they're doing?
Hell yeah, that's wrong what they're doing.
Do you eat McDonald's?
No. Not often. I eat Jack in the Box.
Do you eat Walmart? Do you use Walmart?
No, I don't use Walmart.
Okay, then don't use their services. If you
let me finish. I let you talk.
If you believe that their systems are not in place to help what you believe in, don't eat a hamburger at McDonald's. Don't do anything at Walmart. Protest them. Somebody else will
Except
use
for
it.
$15 an hour is going to actually help their business.
I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to have more of the machines.
Nope.
You will have more of the machines. And let me explain.
We're going to have more of the machines anyway.
You don't have constituents. You don't have people who work at registers. They have you scanning your own stuff. In Germany, they have vending machines for McDonald's. They don't have people. If people think that these people in corporate America are going to come off their pedestal to help feed your family, you're wrong. What is going to happen is they're going to come in with the machines, and the machines are taking your job.
They're already doing that. That's okay. That's a mute point because they're already doing it.
It's not a mute point. It's a fact.
No, yeah, it's a fact. So if they're already doing, you're saying no. You're saying if they do that, I can go right now and order Taco Bell through an app.
What?
You're saying that they're going to replace people with machines. They already are. And for every machine, they replace 10 workers.
And it's growing. So what I'm saying to you, for people like this, it's all about free enterprise. We're going to go back to the zip, recruit.com. They're going to... no, someone created to create jobs. You have Uber. You have Lyft. You have Airbnb. You have all type of enterprises. The new one called Oz.com, OZ.com, where you're able to do shows and you get paid on every subscriber. Free enterprise is going back to the people. Government has failed the people, and people people continue to expand government and think the union's going to take care of them. Unions act if they're your parents. They're not your parents.
Under
They're in the way,
unions,
asking as a
the
mediator,
average
and they're
American
taking
middle-class
your money,
candy
and they're crooks.
family.
The unions are taking
They're
the
not
money.
crooks.
They are crooks.
No,
to
how
some
are they
extent.
crooks?
I'm telling
They
you, they're
protect.
crooks.
I've seen people
How are they
in the
protecting
thing.
these people?
Because they make sure they can get a living wage. They
right.
make sure they
When-
can get. But right now, what we have is a slave system,
Don't
and
we-
that's what that
don't
is.
we have a
That's what
government system
McDonald's.
that's supposed to
and they're
protect
not
and
doing
help the
shit.
people?
That's why we need $15
We need
an hour
expansion
mandate.
of governmental
Oftentimes-
programs to help the people.
Wait,
No,
hold
we
on.
don't need
No,
that.
free enterprise does not want government in their backyard.
No, we do
not.
They absolutely do not want government in their backyard. So they'd rather have a union rep that is hired by them than government in their backyard, and that's okay. If I was a business
Free
owner,
enterprise is from the people, period.
Absolutely,
you have a
but you
choice. It's
don't
not
want-
the
you
government
don't want
or
the
the
government
union.
in your
It starts
backyard.
with the people.
Well,
and the people
absolutely.
can make a conscious decision. And if their business were to evolve like McDonald's did, it started with one person, or like
Well, McDonald's is a
Sam Walmart,
pyramid
like
scheme.
Sam
First of all,
Walmart
franchises is
started.
one of the problems.
Well, then
Right.
don't eat there.
Right.
You
Well-
don't like Walmart, you don't like Sam's Club.
Shirley,
don't eat
Shirley,
there.
Shirley.
I want to say something. From my personal opinion, I think that changing the minimum wage for the wrong reasons is the problem. I don't believe that. I don't believe that saying that it's because people can't make a living on under $15 an hour or because of their education. I feel like if they can't afford education, making under $15 an hour, we need to change our education system and how much we can charge for that.
Agreed with that, too.
I think that if you're going to take
I
$15
think
an
the
hour,
educational system, just to answer, who's speaking, by the way?
Stephen in the booth.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stephen in the booth, you guys, so that you can't see him.
Let me
You know, the
finish one point
educational-
real quick,
Go ahead.
Shirley. Sorry. The other point I want to make is that I'm sorry if the government's going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. These corporations are not going to be hurt. McDonald's, Burger King,
that's
Wendy.
true.
You know what?
Very
They're going to
true.
be like, you know what? Okay, we can pay it. You know who's going to be hurt?
franchisor.
All the people, all
The
the,
people on the
franchises,
street.
all the personal corporations.
small guys.
small
The small
guys.
guys are going
That's
to be
gonna be
hurt.
hurt. That's
And then you
correct.
know what's going to happen? We're
That's
going to have all
correct.
these small
Wrong.
businesses that are providing jobs going out of business, and all these
That's
large
right.
Then
corporations.
tell me what's happening in Seattle. Not one business has gone out because of this $15 an hour. There's a couple that had no business to begin with that have gone down. They haven't had one case of someone making. You know why? Because employees, if they can afford. You know why employees eat at McDonald's when they work at McDonald's? That's all they can freaking afford. So you can't tell. Every time they raise the minimum wage, poor people spend money
you
more
feel
than
it's
rich
your
people.
Right. So you feel it's your right to intervene on someone else's business.
Yes, when I know someone's making $10 million a year and making
don't
even more
eat
in
there.
bonuses, then
Don't
they
buy
should.
their
No, that's
food.
criminal. Just be.
I want to address the question in the man in the booth. When we
Okay.
talk about education, education doesn't always evolve through schooling. It also evolves between that thing. Hold this up real quick.
Oh, iPad.
See, this thing right here, that's where education is evolving. It's in a watch. It's in a tablet. It is in a cell phone. It's on YouTube. It's in all types of forms where children don't have to be held back. I always felt education was held back and on only opportunities of expanding on knowledge, especially when it comes to funds. You don't need small business loan. You don't need the government. You can do LLCs. You can do S corporations. You can do acquisition and mergers. You can do other people's money. There's other ways to generate wealth in one's life. But because the urban communities and the urban leaders have failed to try to show those routes, they have a monopoly game among themselves, and by tossing from seat to seat so they can say, oh, I'm running here, oh, I'm running there, and you need me because we need more expanded governmental programs. No, we don't. You have the right to take charge of your life. Start learning what the Uber and what's the Zip.
I work for Uber. I love
and
it.
all these other people will do because it makes great money.
It-
It's
I mean,
also
but see,
it's
here's
also
the
the
thing.
problem of they trying to solve specific problems with blanket solutions. You can't take a blanket minimum wage over $15 over everything and expect everything to just be better.
It is, though.
I agree with that.
Stephen.
I
It's
Okay,
not.
Here's why.
Stephen's
Here's
right.
why. Hold
I
on.
agree with Stephen.
Because here's why. Because when poor people have money, they spend it. Rich people don't spend money,
That's
guys.
not true. Everybody
no,
spends
no,
money.
No, rich people
You
hold
know,
it in
that's-
banks and
that's-
investments.
that's like a
wait, hold on.
that's wrong.
No,
Everybody spends
freaking
money.
Bill Gates is sitting on
Who
$50
manages
billion.
how he manages his money, and you're going to criticize the fact that Bill Gates is able to keep
He's
his
the one who
money.
says he should be
Oprah
taxed
Winfrey
more.
can keep her
He
money.
says he should be taxed
Every
more.
one of these people can keep their money, but yet you want to criticize them for doing
How much
that?
would Walmart have to raise a
Don't buy
mac
their
and
food.
cheese?
Don't
It's
eat
2
there
cents
and
more
move
to
on.
be $15
Tell all
an
your
hour.
friends that want them to increase their salaries, just don't eat there. That's how
Well,
you do it.
That's
You
not
know,
how you
that's
do
what
it.
they did. No, that's what
Now
they did in
when
the
poor people-
60s.
No, but I don't think
they
that's
protest.
the full solution. Those of us that have children that work there, those of us that have family members or neighbors, we don't want to just protest by not being consumers at Walmart, McDonald's, and wherever they're asking for more than minimum wage.
Why not?
Because we want to support the community.
Yeah, but if they're telling you they're not going to raise the minimum wage, then protest. But they're not going to do that. You know why? Because Walmart offers a fair price compared to their competitors.
Yeah, and for 2 cents more on a mac and cheese, they can pay $15 an hour.
And so the communities are going to say, well, I understand you want to get a raise, but I still need to feed and take care of my family, and Walmart offers
the
a
Waltons need
comparative
more
price.
money to take care of their families? Are you shitting me?
But I
You're
think,
not,
no.
Come on.
I think
I'm talking about I'm not talking about the Waltons. I'm talking about the constituent. Instead of going buying at maybe a higher price.
But they can't because they don't have money. That's my point. My point is that we have this cycle of poverty, and this
So
happened in the early
if they
1900s
do
before there was a minimum wage, before there was child labor outlawed. What they did is that exact thing. They would raise things prices just enough so you could afford them. That's why Walmart. Guess where most Walmart employees buy their food?
That financial
with their
system
food
is
stamps.
not in place today.
Yes, it is.
We are a global economy now. And
No.
we have a
No,
lot
you're
of
wrong.
money that's filtrated in our country as well as in our finances and in our housing market. And everything has been shifted.
And yet Walmart
especially
double
with
dips
free
with
enterprise and
welfare.
opportunity. You know, I'm not going to look at Walmart as the bad guy. You've just
They
got
are
to
the
be
bad guy.
responsible for yourself and stop hating everyone else and use whatever's out there, even if it is a governmental program, even it is a union program, use something that's going to work for you and think outside the box. They're not going to change for you. And I'm going to agree with the guy in the box. Okay, so there's a blanket of let's raise it to $25 an hour. Don't worry, they're going to pass
No, that's
the
a slippery
cost
slope
on to
fallacy.
you.
That's not what we're
They're gonna
asking for.
pass
We're
them the
asking for fair price for your work. You should get paid for working an 8-hour day. If they're giving millions of dollars in bonuses, there's money.
If you were to increase that high, they may get paid more than someone who
It's
has
less than a
more
5%
of the skill
raise
level.
on all their prices in order to afford $15 an
Their skill
hour.
level is equated to what they get paid for.
But you know,
I'm sorry.
I'd like to say something. You mentioned that education is necessary. A lot of the educational institutions now are offering free tuition if the families make less than $125,000, which is quite a few people. You know, many people make less than that. So if these people still want to be educated, they can do that. However, even something as simple as a tablet, many people that make $9 an hour can't afford a $100 tablet, you know, whether it's Kindle or whomever.
They don't need a tablet. They can do their cell phone. The government provides a free cell phone in California.
Not
so
with
they already
internet
got
on
that.
it.
If you
You've
make-
got
yeah,
free
it doesn't have
Wi-Fi.
internet.
You've got free Wi-Fi everywhere. Let me clarify.
Where?
When I said education, you can go to McDonald's and get free Wi-Fi. What's your problem? Oh, that's right. You don't like eating there.
Yeah.
But if we
Exactly.
free for you.
There's just no plugs. You
But
get
if we
Wi-Fi
think
with no
about
plugs.
education, I'm talking about from a skill level.
Okay.
Just a little skill level. Like
Not
when
a
we talk about
university.
trying to tell our kids to go to high school and go to college, I don't think every kid needs to go to college.
I agree with that.
I'm sorry. I just think that there need to create some type of trade. We need to expand the trade platform.
I think-
It's
I
an
think you're
easier
right. I think you're
process.
absolutely right
It's a
with
less
that.
costly process, and then there's an opportunity of execution.
Except for when the trades go out by technology, which is happening at a rapid rate.
How
By
do
the
they-
way,
how do
Uber
they go
is not
out?
going to be a thing in 7 years. 7 years from now, you're going to have cars that drive themselves, so I'm not going to have a job. So this isn't, that's my point, is the problem isn't well, the problem is technology. For every job
not minimum
that
wage,
technology
yeah.
creates, it takes 10 away, and that's our problem. That's why we have 27 and 28 is the median age
You
of a
can
fast
look at
food
the pros
worker.
and cons
Do you,
of
do you know how,
technology. Go
Michael?
ahead.
When you're running a business, do you know how they try to plan ahead for the next few years, decades? It's a 5-year plan. They have a
Yeah,
10-year
yeah.
plan. They have a 30-year plan.
Sure.
All right. Raise the minimum wage to $15. Okay, you're
step
going to
increases
you're
over the
going
years.
to lower your profits by a certain margin. So the businesses are going to change their 5 and
That's
10,
correct.
15-year plan
That's
to
correct.
accommodate for that, so they can keep their profits up. Because if
correct.
they even if the minimum wage goes up, they don't care. Their investors want to still make the same amount of money, so they're going to adjust.
That's some of the problem to me is the investors.
We raise the minimum wage to $15. 5 years down the line, it's still $15.
That's correct.
But they've cut their employee and mitigated it with machines and mitigated with more self-automated
correct.
services to make up that deficit. So now we have more unemployed people, and now we have more expensive
We
products.
already have more unemployed people. This is the problem. You're exactly right, Stephen. Like they're even talking about with world-leading economists. They're talking about that we should institute a mandatory wage to everybody. Like you get a living wage to pay for
This
rent.
country was founded on capitalism and free enterprise.
Okay, but that's
that'll
not
never
working
happen.
anymore.
Yeah, but I
Okay?
don't think
if
I
it
don't think
wasn't
that'll
working,
ever
we
happen.
wouldn't be in existence. You know, I think
No,
that
it's failing now.
I
It can
disagree
work
with
for a
you.
while.
I think you were enjoying it through doing Lyft and Uber. So you are part of that process.
Okay, except for I know in 7 years, unlike these other Uber drivers, I know I'm out in 7 years.
So you're focusing on 7 years versus enjoying the now, so you can take that Uber money and do something else to better yourself.
Yeah, no,
but he's
and I
also
agree
he's
with
looking.
that.
It's good because he's got a vision about his future. Many minimum wage employees, they don't have a vision about their future, and so when the Walmart that closed the other day, they closed their doors and they told people maybe a day before that they were closing. Those people had no plans for the future.
Right.
And they have no rights.
Well, yes, because we have at will employment now,
Right.
where they can let you
But that
go
could have
at
been any
will.
company, not just
Absolutely,
Walmart.
absolutely.
I mean, when the market crashed, a lot of people lost their homes, they lost their jobs.
Sure.
Even small businesses, not big businesses like Walmart, had to close their doors. Look, skill levels need to be improved
Walmart
on
made a
all
lot
of
of
us,
money.
no matter what
They
age
do.
that you're
and see,
at.
that's incumbent
I
upon
agree.
us to hit these high schools up and say, don't let these kids out without skills.
I
They
agree.
let them out, they give them a diploma, but oftentimes they don't have marketable skills.
You know, my son
beyond
graduated from
restaurant.
high school last year. He went to early college high school. And they were
Right.
able to get an AA while they were in high school. And they encourage those kids to get even just a trade. There needs to be more trades in place to allocate, or at least you'll be able to take care of your family. You don't have to think about when I get out of high school, I hope I can get a job at Walmart. No, you already have trade skills that were established after maybe junior high.
But what happens when those trades go away? Like, let's look at the auto industry.
You think auto industry is going away?
Well, there is no auto industry
but
in
I
America,
think
pretty
people
much.
No, I'm talking about building cars, or, I mean, what
It's
are you talking
mostly done by robots.
Well, I'm
That's
talking
my
about
point.
mechanic auto industry.
Yeah, it's gonna
You
go.
know,
It's gonna. Okay, this is
you
my
don't think
prediction.
you need to-
I think
when-
everything's
when you
going to
change-
be
Well, no,
so.
I think
I
people
think
just
we're
have to
ways
be
away from
people have
having
to
someone
be
change your
innovative.
oil, that'd be a computer.
Hopefully, your son is thinking, long term. Even though he's got skills now, he's thinking, what will I do if this possibly goes away? What's my next move?
Exactly.
That's what they should be thinking about.
But they can utilize that trade or that skill that they acquired earlier in their life to say, this may not be indefinite. You're not going to work Uber
Right,
forever.
right.
You're not
No.
doing Uber forever. You're a comedian, right?
Yeah.
So you hope to be some big comedian like
I hope to write for a big comedian, but
Okay,
yes.
right. So that's
A
your
bigger
ultimate goal.
comedian.
Yes. But you're using that skill of your
Sure.
driving to
Yeah.
get you to the next level.
Right. So
We
it's
Well,
can't-
but
all
I was
about,
lucky,
it's all
too.
about innovative thought.
Because I didn't have a car for 4 years, and I just lucked. Here's my white privilege story. My
Right.
mom bought a new car, and because I was going to go finance one that through Uber, which it's a very expensive program, but I
Right.
desperately needed a job.
Right.
And I was lucky where my mom's thing was up, and she went and got a new car, so I was able to buy her old one.
that's great.
But a lot of people, it's easy to say, hey, just go do Uber, but for a
have to
year
have
I
a-
wanted
I
to.
think before we end the
New
show, we
car.
should think about solutions. So
Okay.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I think we all can agree that skills are an issue. And even though there are unions in place and there are governmental programs, you can use those programs. But don't look to those programs to live on them for life.
I agree with that.
I also think that I want to make sure I get this across. We can't live in an anger mode. Energy promotes other energies like yourself. If you want to succeed and you want to excel, you want to change the urban game, stop looking at someone because they got more money, I want their money. Go out there and create your own McDonald's. Go out there and get you. There's so many new free enterprises from food trucks.
But I think-
mean, oh my God.
Okay.
Look
Yeah,
outside
you're
the
right.
box of, well, he got more than me. I want his money, my poor kid. Stop that. Stop that thinking. I'm holding your face right
But
now.
we're talking
I want
about
you to
people-
create your own.
But we're talking about people who do work. We're not talking about, and you're right, welfare people need
You
to
don't
work
have
and
two
things like
jobs
that.
just now, right?
Yes.
You do, and you do work. But you also know that you need to skill up and level up by acquiring
Sure.
more assets to
But
be able to move
how do
forward
I
out
get
of what
those
you do.
assets? Without
You're
Uber,
doing it with Uber.
luckily.
And that was a free enterprise and capitalist system that someone thought in their head, and they created a device to do it. All
Sure.
I'm saying is take the programs, however it is, and
Yeah.
stop blaming one party or the other party and make it happen.
But-
what do you feel about the
Well,
criminal?
I think we also need to think globally. And, I heard you say think outside the box, and that is essential, but
Yes.
also think globally. We
Yes.
need to look at and see what other countries are doing to be successful. What are they doing? What are they creating? And in Europe, for years, the children have graduated from high school with skills and with degrees, AA degrees.
Yes, yes.
So that's innovative for America, but not so much for other countries. They're already on top of that game. I think that our children need to travel more, because in travel you learn about
Yes.
other cultures, other countries. What are people doing to make money? What are people doing to be more enterprising? America is one of the few countries where these kids don't speak another language by the time they graduate. Yes, they
There's
do.
people who live in LA who,
Right.
like my friend 3 years ago, grew up here.
Right.
First time seeing the ocean 3 years ago.
Okay, that's his fault and his parents' fault.
Well,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
well, I
Take
mean,
the train and go. Come
Right.
on.
Oh,
Right.
sure.
But that's
Right.
a good example. Like you
I'm
said,
saying-
if we fail ourselves, aren't you saying that?
Absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
When we
absolutely.
know those opportunities, like going to the
Absolutely.
beach, are there and you don't utilize them.
But I think we need to just be more global in our thought and our practices. We need to travel more. We need to read. I'm a big proponent of reading more.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
need to see what's going on across the ocean.
Absolutely.
Even something, you talk about the tablet, you talk about McDonald's. Most of the people I see working on either their computers, their tablets, and things like that, because I go all over the city, they're watching movies. I see people on the subway watching movies. We need to look at we need to study. We need to look at the numbers game.
I
What's
agree. I
going
think
on.
the way that our thought processes are faster
Yeah.
because of technology. Wouldn't you agree, Mike?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think some of this comes down to ethics? Because here's a fun
does.
fact.
It does.
In Sweden and Finland, where it is socialist, but they have no minimum wage. Average McDonald's worker makes $18 an hour.
Okay.
So what is it about American business owners that we need to? How do we change that culture?
Sweden is also much smaller than America.
Okay, that's not
it
my
also
point.
covers
No,
less
no, no,
grounds.
he's got a
It
good
also
point,
covers
though.
less ground, so the distribution of all materials that go into everything
I-
costs
that
a lot
wasn't-
less.
Okay, but my whole point was that they pay their workers $17 an
But
hour, Stephen.
something's
That's all.
going-
But-
My whole point is without a minimum wage. Here's to the conservatives'
But
point.
Mike,
the
are you
conservative point is: do we need a minimum wage? In Sweden, we don't.
You're not listening to what he's pointing out to you. The demographics of the reach is much different than our system, and so that
That's
system
a
might work
terrible
on a smaller
excuse.
aspect, but a larger aspect must be addressed.
Okay, let's put
differently.
any state against Sweden, and they lose pretty much.
But the minimum wage also protects the little guy. We're talking about an increase, but the minimum wage has a start point.
That's right.
In many
It
of the-
encourages them to say, "I want to get out of this."
Right. We just had an issue where downtown Los Angeles, they were underpaying people in the clothing industry.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they were revealed, and they were I think they were incarcerated because they were not producing the right payroll numbers. And so minimum wage also protects people. I remember when I
Absolutely.
first started working, I made $2.65 an hour.
Wow.
$5.15
A
is my
long time
minimum.
ago. So now it's gone up to, in the state of California or in Los Angeles, $9 an hour. That's a protective device. So I think that's okay. Now, should we go up to 15? I don't think we're going to go up to 15, but I think that's a
don't
good
either.
mark. We'll probably go up to 11. I think that's realistic. And they're talking about over a period of time, over 5 years. But we've also got to look at the cost of living. LA is the second most expensive city to live in. New York
Yes,
is
it
the
is.
first.
Yes, it is.
And so that's what we have to look at. This is a very expensive city. So even
Yes.
though we're paying these people $9 and we're saying you should utilize, computers and things like that and technology, these people are riding the bus because they can't afford a car, as you mentioned with Uber. They're living in apartments, and there's a lot of them in the apartment. That talks about, urban development and things like that. They can't afford maybe the bus to go to the beach because they're working all the time.
No, that too.
Well,
Yeah.
We're not denying that the hardship is there.
Right,
What we're saying
right.
the solution would be to acquire more skills, to look at other types
could.
of
They
trades.
absolutely could.
And I say technology because there's government-funded watches and cell phones that
That's
are out
true.
there that allow you to go online and you can think, what do you like to do? Go to YouTube. I'm going to go back to what you said earlier with my global enterprise.
Right.
I met 3 days ago, I met with a good man named Good Jong Song. He is the CEO of Oz.com.
Okay.
And he said his main purpose of creating this thing where people can do like a YouTube, but people have to subscribe.
Right.
So if they were to go to your channel and they go, CR, right?
CR.
Or they would go to CR's channel.
Okay.
And CR charges $4.99 a month to see what she's talking about for the day. And then they keep 30% and you keep the other 70%. And when I first met with them, their channel, they only had 200 subscribers with them because they launched last week.
Right.
Now they're at 600 and they plan on being in the hundreds and thousands. So here's a man knowing that he created a product that was going to
Right.
affect the world. I think we need to stop blaming those who will always have more because it's part of the American system of capitalism, and we have to be self-accountable and say, you know what can I do to move through this pain versus going into the pain and then demanding that pain to give you something, and in the end, it'll be too late. They're not going to give you anything.
No, I think it's an excellent ideal. I think it's an excellent thought. I think that Maybe we need to change the way we attended high school versus the kids today.
I agree.
You
agree
know,
with that.
yeah, they have to start thinking
doing
in
stuff
terms
from
of
the
business.
20s.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's why I said the
right.
trade programs and
Right.
getting their AA while they're in high school because they are thinking faster and all of them aren't not doing videos. My kids, they shock me. They'll write. My youngest son was
Right.
watching TEDx. You've seen those documentaries or TEDx, those testimonies of businesses.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you reading? He says, this is a great story. So they're encouraged by visual, hearing, and writing stories. I'm the CEO of Story.com, and we're working on an app so people can write their stories and be able to read their stories. Stories help you expand your mind because you're learning from people whose minds already have been expanded.
Right. And they're telling you things. And so I think that's beneficial. I think it's extremely beneficial. I think what we've summarized here is that maybe we need to change the way we look at our educational system in the U.S. before we talk about minimum wage and increasing it.
I
And what are we
agree.
increasing it for? You know, I
So
think
that
that would be
people
the
can
question. So they could eat.
Yes.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us today. My name is Michael Timont. You can find me on michaeltimont.com and at Michael Timont. Shirley, where can they
I'm
find you?
Shirley Hussar, Husar. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Husar. I want to hear your comments after the show. Please leave them. And go ahead, Camille.
And I'm C.R. Cochran-McClurkin. You can reach me at crcochran@rnc.org.
Okay,
Thank you guys for watching. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks for
From
watching.
producers Maria
Thank you.
Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.